Shopping, 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 shopping. Yes, I had done a lot of shopping this past weekend, mainly due to the fact that I have a new app on my phone that is encouraging me to wander around the city to other places I normally wouldn't scout out. Yes, I had downloaded Pokemon Go and I've been having quite a lot of fun with that. And because I've been wandering different parts of the city that normally I wouldn't have gone to, it has led me to many new record stores. And in my defense, one particular record store was going out of business, so they were having an end of business sale. So most of these guys are used. So let's dive into what I got. And I'm going to scoot over here so you guys can have a proper view of what I've got. So first up, I've got Frampton Comes Alive. This is a fantastic live album. I'm not a big fan of Peter Frampton, but I figured if I was going to have an album, this would be it. This has, the staple song of Do You Feel Like We Do, and that song alone was enough to pick up this album. And again, it was, one of those dollar albums, so yay. Glad to have it in my collection. Next up is Focus 3. Now, I haven't actually heard this one. I have heard of the Hamburg Concerto, so I love that one. I also have Permanent Waves. Love those guys. So I figured this guy has a lot of the longer compositions, and I haven't had a chance to really sit down and listen to it yet, but I'm glad I picked it up, and I can't wait to really get into the groove. These guys are just funky as all get out. I love listening to them, so glad I picked it up, and I can't wait to listen to it. Next on is Shine On Brightly by Procol Harum. These guys are a lot of fun. Again, not a big fan of Procol Harum, but this album actually holds one of the first really long compositions. It's on the second side of this album, and it comes in at about 17 minutes. I haven't actually listened to this guy yet. I have heard the longer song on the second side a couple of times, and it's a fun track and one that I don't mind listening to every once in a while. So next up is 100% pure guilty pleasure, and that is Xanadu, collaboration between Olivia Newton-John and the Electric Light Orchestra. I love Electric Light Orchestra. They're one of my favorite pop bands from the 70s, prog pop bands. And so this was the soundtrack to the movie Xanadu, which was a concept in and of itself that is just ridiculous. A roller skated musical with Olivia Newton-John and music from Electric Light Orchestra. That alone is just fantastic. I mean, the back really kind of says it all with Olivia Newton-John right there with the ELO. So again, 100% guilty pleasure. So next up are two albums from Jethro Tull that I've never really had in my collection, but I love to listen to. And the first one is War Child. I've seen this album time and time again, but I just never really got around to picking it up. I haven't actually listened to anything on this album as well, so I am interested and excited to really sit down and listen to this guy. The other one I have heard and do like is Heavy Horses. I love this album. I love the title track of Heavy Horses, really dense and really deep stuff on this album. So both of these were a lot of fun to listen to. Once I actually get into War Child, I'll let you know more of what I'm thinking. But I love Heavy Horses. A great track from one of the staple progressive rock bands. Next up is an album half to complete the collection and half just because I actually genuinely like it, and that is Invisible Touch by Genesis. A lot of the prog snobs out there and a lot of the prog elitists really poo-poo this album, but I actually really dig it. I really enjoy it. The songs such as Land of Confusion and even Invisible Touch and Domino, these songs are a lot of fun. In fact, I would argue that this is probably the best pop album that Genesis has done, just for Land of Confusion alone. And the last song of the Brazilian, that's actually a really great track. I really love the Brazilian. I mean, it's definitely not anything that you're going to have from the 70s of Genesis, but it is a fun time and one that I do love listening to. So I finally picked it up, I finally broke down, and now I'm only missing a couple albums from Genesis, but I'm not going to run out and pick up Abacab or We Can't Dance. I'm going to leave those ones on the shelf. Next up are two Uriah Heep albums, and I've been in a very intense Uriah Heep mood for quite a while, and the First one is The Magician's Birthday. This was actually my first album I listened from Uriah Heep. Well, no, I should scratch that. When I was like 5 or 6, I picked up The Raging Silence, but I didn't even know what it was at the time. This is the first album I really got into Uriah Heep, especially with the title track of The Magician's Birthday. Love that track. And one album that I've been listening to a little bit more is Look at Yourself. Now, normally when you're listening to this, or when you're seeing this part here is of a glossy, almost like a tinfoil. It's supposed to be a mirror, but it never really mirrored anything. This was definitely one of those going out of sale albums, and part of the reason why I got it for so cheap is because this part is all gone. But I'm not necessarily that concerned about the facade of the album. What I care about is what's inside of it, and Look at Yourself is really growing on me. Just that last song of the first side of July Morning, such a great song. I'm slowly trying to collect all the classic ones from these guys, so glad to have these in my collection. Next up is Gentle Giant Live, Playing the Fool. This is another one that I've seen time and time again, but I just never really decided to pick it up. This was in one of those 3 for $5, so I picked it up to round out the $5, and I love some of the live renditions of these songs. Just the Same and Proclamation was such a great rendition being live. And Gentle Giant is one of those bands that are so tight on their studio albums, you wonder how on earth are they going to recreate that in a live venue? Well, on this album, they prove that they can definitely play what they've got on their studio in the live recordings. Okay, so the next one is actually a newer release. This is a re-release of a classic album. I saw this at one of my favorite record stores near the west end of Toronto, and that is A Night at the Opera by Queen. This was my first album I picked up from Queen. I got this for my birthday a long time ago when I tried to request a song at a local radio station and got too nervous and actually hung up the phone before I could request it. But I have this. It has such beautiful songs such as Love of My Life, I'm in Love with My Car, Best Friends, and of course the staple song of Bohemian Rhapsody. But really my favorite song off of this album is the Prophet song. That song is just killer. Okay, we're coming to the home stretch. We've got 2 more bands with 4 albums. First up, trying to collect and complete my Pink Floyd album. We have the re-release of More. I've been trying to find this album in its original condition. I haven't been able to, so Pink Floyd has been re-releasing a lot of their classic albums. All of their albums will be on vinyl soon. I think right now they've only released Piper, Saucer, Moore, and Ummagumma. I already had Ummagumma and all the other ones. This was the one that I was missing, so I picked that one up. And I also found Obscured by Clouds. Finally, I've been looking for this guy for years, and I finally found it at a used record store. It was a little pricey, probably a little bit more than I should have paid, but I'm a completionist and I didn't really want to buy the re-released. I really want to collect the original pressings, so I found it, and they're both soundtracks, so now all I'm missing is Relics. That's going to be the final one to round off all of my Pink Floyd. This album gets overlooked a lot just because it's in between Metal and Dark Side of the Moon, and unfortunately it's not the greatest cut either. And I remember listening to a documentary where Roger Waters even admits that it's not a great cut. They probably should have spent a little bit more time polishing some of the songs off. But it's got some great songs such as What's the Deal, and even Mudman. Mudman is a fantastic song and gets overlooked a lot. So I finally picked up those 2, and I'm one step closer to completing my collection. Finally, rounding this all off, I got Peter Gabriel's second album of Scratch. My old album from this was literally scratched. My uncle, when he was listening to this, liked to cut his albums, and I don't know what it was, but unfortunately went a little too deep and he nicked the entire album itself. So I found this guy and finally picked it up. So I'm almost completed in my Peter Gabriel collection, and to help me off with that, Peter Gabriel had re-released all of his albums on vinyl, and I finally was able to pick up Up. I love this album. This album is such a great album. It's got so many beautiful songs on that. Blue Sky, Darkness, Growing Up, and even probably one of my favorite songs. It's not quite my favorite. Salisbury Hill is probably still my favorite, but one of my favorite songs of Signal to Noise. And it's on a 45 speed, so it's got a little bit more of a humble sound to it. It's got a little bit more of that fuller, humble sound. It's over 3 discs, but this is just a treat to listen on vinyl finally. That kind of rounds out the entire thing. And so that's about it. So, what did you guys think? Let me know what your favorite album out of the whole bunch was down below. Let me know which one you thought was a little bit odd to have in my collection. Again, let me know by commenting below. And thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are definitely the best. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to upload a full-length review this week. I'm a little bit busy. I've got a concert tomorrow, and then I'm going off to a conference out in the country's capital of Ottawa. And I'm going to be there until Friday. So I'm not going to have enough time to really hunker down and let you guys in on a full-length review. But don't worry, next week I've got a couple of ideas coming through. Probably going to do a top 10 because I haven't done one of those in a while. So bear with me, new stuff is coming through. And that's about it. All right, notes out.